Hi, welcome to Funny Fuscata. I'm Sean. It has been a heck of a week. Last Saturday, Donald Trump was shot. Today, Joe Biden stepped down from the presidential race. And all week long, I have been paying attention to the news and the developments and the Secret Service. And there's been all these things about mocking the Secret Service and wondering what they did, and was it an inside job, and was it the Iranians, and was it, Russian collusions, or was it the CIA or the FBI, or what was going on, and all this crazy speculation. And from my perspective, at the end of it all, when you look at all the information that's coming available, it seems like a young man from Western Pennsylvania who was disenfranchised with life took advantage of a system that was broken and took a couple shots at the president. Maybe he was trying to make a name for himself. And I've heard a lot of people here on the YouTubes and the interwebs talking about how they don't want to mention this guy's name. They don't want to they don't want to give too much information, because there's this idea that when you have gunmen and shooters and all these sorts of things like we have in the United States, that if you start to mention their name, then they'll get some kind of notoriety. And there is a concern that other people who may be, teetering on the edge of making a horrifying decision like this could think that it'd be a good thing, and it could get them some fame if, they know that their name's going to get out there. So people don't want to hush. They're like, well, don't mention the person's name. And I gotta be honest and say that idea, well, I mean, I get it, is just really pisses me off, because it's a temporary solution. Like, if in the immediate aftermath of a situation like this, if you don't mention the person's name, it's not like there isn't also a Wikipedia page, like right now. Right, there isn't going to be documentaries about it for years and years. It's not like they're going to just like forget who this person was. So not mentioning this person's name is ridiculous. Another thing that often gets overlooked in all these conversations that happen is the fact that a young man lost his life. And did he do something profoundly stupid? Yeah. Could it set the country into a tailspin? Absolutely. Was that his intention? I guess we'll never know. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But I don't think it'll really matter. But at the end of it, whatever the motivations were, and whatever the results are of what happened, the fact remains that this is a broken young man. And the fact remains that his parents and his family and people who knew him are all wondering and dealing with that loss, particularly his parents. And I have a son who's the same age. And I can't imagine the loss that the parents are feeling right now. And I want to say too that my own son, who is the same age, he's the son that I'm estranged from right now. He is transgender. And that's been hard for me to deal with. I'm a Gen Xer. I'm, lean conservative. I have like an engineering brain, and I see things as like analytical, and I want to look at the science and the data. And I don't often do a good job of accounting for emotions and people's desires and people's views of themselves. That's hard for me to process. And a few years ago, almost 2 years ago now, he told me that he was gay and suspected that he was transgender. And without getting into the circumstances, because they're all deeply personal, there was a fight. We both said some nasty things. And from that point forward, I've been blocked. And I've tried to reach out. I have checked in on him through family members and through siblings just to make sure everything's going okay. It was a complicated situation. But what bothers me, well, there's a lot of things that bother me about it. One of the many things that bother me about it is how this fits into that same pattern of limiting beliefs that I'd had for my life, where the things that I had wanted were always just out of reach and available to somebody else. And my relationship with my children, and particularly this son, largely fell into that category. It has been remarkably difficult for as long as he's been alive, to have any kind of relationship with him. Because his mom and I got divorced, and he lived far away from me, and I was in the military, and I was traveling, and there was always some kind of circumstance where I couldn't be there. And I did the best that I could, given what I had. But like a lot of dads in my generation, and probably in subsequent generations, it's hard. When you go through a divorce and you have a child, it can be really hard to keep things together and be there for your kids. And being in the military compounds that. And so, effectively, my son grew up without a dad. His grandfather was close by, which was helpful. And his mom had boyfriends and male role models that would come along, but that's never the same as having a dad. And I know that he has issues and concerns and mental health issues, which are fairly common to people in this generation. And I see my middle son, who kind of came through all of that, but he has his own challenges too. But from my perspective, given my relationship with my son and how painful that is for me, it makes me that much more keenly aware of what the parents of Mr. Crooks must be going through. Because from all accounts, from what I hear, they're really good folks. They're counselors. They live in a modest home in Western Pennsylvania. Just regular folks, just trying to make a living, doing the best they can. And now, and from what I understand too, they lived private lives. And we may never know what circumstances were like in the home, and I'm sure eventually the reporters and the bottom feeders will be out there just peeling back the layers of the onion and peeling it back and peeling it back, and in 5 or 10 years there'll be like a massive tell-all documentary and all that kind of bullshit. and fine. But what I don't see happening, what I don't ever see happening, is two things. One is I never see anybody have a rational conversation about gun control in this country. Because there's going to be backlash. There's going to be, oh, you got to register this and you got to do that. And now when the powers that be have their way, and, everybody has to get their digital ID and everything's digital currency, and you're going to have to get, social credit scores and all that kind of nonsense that we all know is coming our way. Like, this is going to happen. Nowhere in that conversation that I can foresee is anybody going to say, we need to have better mental health care in the United States. We need to find out why the younger generations seem to be broken and seem to be shooting and seem to be just not doing well. And I know that's not the sexiest answer. That's not going to become a great political football that somebody can say, oh, I'm going to, go score a touchdown with providing better mental health care to, people. Because it's not as sexy as gun control. But what would happen if we did that? What would happen if we said, instead of making new laws about who can have guns and how many rounds you can buy and how big the magazines can be and, can it be black and can it have handles on it and all these ridiculous laws that they have. What if they said, you know what? This is clearly a problem that we have. Let's just leave the gun control laws in place that we have. Let's step back and let's look at our mental health in this country. Let's look at our nutrition in this country. Let's look at family lives in this country. Let's look at wealth inequality in this country. Let's look at all these things that we know. We've researched this stuff to death. We know so much about this, and we do nothing about it. We know how to fix this problem in this country, but we don't. Because gun control is a political football. And now, Thomas Matthew Crooks is dead. And Donald Trump was almost dead. Which most assuredly would have thrown us into a civil war. And now, Mr. Crooks Sr. is missing his little boy. And that's a pain that my boy is alive. And he's functioning, he's doing well, he's taking classes, he's doing stuff. I don't fully understand everything that he's going through. I wish I could. But because of the politics at the time and because of how things are, I've been blocked. And, so be it. But I know he's there. I know I could get on a plane and, drive to where he's staying, and I could see him. Mr. Crooks can't do that because his son's gone. Because we as a country can't fix our problems, even though we know what they are. And I got to tell you that over the last year on this journey of self-improvement I've been on, I've learned so much about the mirror principle. And this has been a hard thing. This has been a very hard thing of taking radical accountability for my life. And taking absolute responsibility for everything that I see. and understanding there's a difference between accountability and blame. So like when if I get in a traffic accident and somebody cuts out in front of me, I can say, well, that person cut in front of me, and then, that's me. I'm blaming. That's me blaming. I say, well, they cut in front of me and they weren't paying attention and they weren't doing this and they didn't, I don't know, have their headlights on, or they were texting, or whatever the thing is. I'm blaming. Versus taking accountability for something where somebody cuts out in front of me and I hit them. And even if by law, the accident isn't my fault, because they like legitimately did something that was, made an illegal move or whatever it was, there's still a sense in which I'm still accountable for that accident to myself. I may not be accountable to the insurance companies and to the courts and to the, traffic laws or anything like that, but I'm still accountable for that. Like, it's my vehicle that was damaged. It's my time that was damaged. It's my life that was impacted. And there's a big difference between blame and accountability. And one thing that I've learned through practicing and understanding the mirror principle is that the world outside of you truly is a mirror of whatever is inside. So if that's true, then when we see a sick world outside of us, that has to mean we have a sick world inside of us. And in that sense, we're accountable. We aren't to blame. It's not necessarily our fault. Like, I didn't sell, young Mr. Crooks a box of ammunition. I'm not the one who let him borrow the AR-15. I mean, I had no idea, 100% no involvement with any of these people. So I'm not to blame for it. But it's there, I see it. So in the absolute sense, according to the mirror principle, there's some part of me, because it presented on the screen of my life, that has some accountability in this. And what that is, I don't know. I can't really know. It's too complex. There might be some part of me that does know, but I can't contact it easily. I don't know what it is. But I have a hunch it has something to do with the fact that I'm an adult, and I have been an adult for a long, long time. Here in these United States of America. And we still have an education system that's broken, a healthcare system, which is actually more of a symptom care system, which is broken, tax structure that's broken, democratic process that's broken. I mean, everything in our country is broken. It's just busted. And the second part of this, the second thing I don't see. So remember, the first thing I don't see is anybody talking about the very real crisis that we have in America that leads to situations like this. The second thing that I don't see ever, from a pulpit or from spiritual gurus or from leaders or in the media or anywhere in any kind of social media, is anybody anywhere asking for forgiveness or seeking to forgive. There's a ancient, how I think it's safe to say it's ancient, but I don't know how ancient it is. But it's a practice called Ho'oponopono. Have you heard of this? Ho'oponopono. Ho'oponopono. And because I live in 2024 and I have a computer, I asked ChatGPT via Copilot on Bing to break down Ho'oponopono for me really quickly. And this is what it says. The Ho'oponopono prayer is a powerful ancient Hawaiian healing process that aims to release memories, problems, and limitations. It involves forgiveness, self-forgiveness, and transmutation. Here are some key aspects of Ho'oponopono. 1. The original Ho'oponopono prayer. Divine Creator, Father, Mother, Child as one. If I, my family, relatives, and ancestors have offended you, your family, relatives, and ancestors, in thoughts, words, deeds, and actions, from the beginning of our creation to the present, we ask you for forgiveness. And that's the original prayer. So here's number 2, where they, in modern times, I don't know if it's necessarily in modern times, but other people have used more contemporary language on it. You've got number 2, the four phrase Ho'oponopono prayer. This simple mantra, taught by Dr. Hugh Len, is widely known. It goes like this. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. It combines the power of repentance, self-forgiveness, and gratitude to heal and transmute limiting beliefs or memories. You can use these phrases in any order and for any problem, even without knowing the specific issue. The more you practice, the better the results. And, ChatGPT has one other thing to say. Sorry, Copilot. Remember, Ho'oponopono is about healing yourself, releasing negativity, and becoming free. It's mainly about forgiving yourself and asking the divine for help in that process. Feel free to explore further and find what resonates with you. The story that goes with Dr. Hugh Len. Remember earlier I talked about Dr. Hugh Len. And the story goes that he was a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but he went to go work at a mental hospital in Hawaii, I believe. And this mental hospital was notorious for having some of the worst offenders and having some just really, really bad dudes in there who had severe mental health problems and were violent criminals. And just the worst kind of people that you'd want to be around. And this hospital that he went to had a problem where they went through a lot of staff. There was a high turnover rate because people would go there and the practices were just barbaric and the patients were just terrible to be around. And so the staff would just leave. They'd get there, they'd get discouraged, and they just couldn't stay. They couldn't do it. And they would leave. And so Dr. Hugh Len, I don't remember the story of how he got involved in this directly, but as the story goes, he went to this hospital and he was familiar with the Ho'oponopono process. And he went and got the case files for all the patients and started reviewing their files, and with everything that he read about them, he would say this Ho'oponopono prayer. Now, I don't know if he used the ancient Hawaiian one, the divine creator, father, mother, child is one, and all that, or if he used the simple mantra of, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. But I don't suppose it matters at this point, because as the story goes, he repeated the Ho'oponopono prayer over and over and over again as he read the case files. And legend has it that he never even interacted directly with any of the patients. He didn't go and see them. He didn't have therapy sessions. He didn't have counseling sessions. Nothing like that. He was just himself. He was dignified. He was centered. He was poised. He did his work that he needed to do. And he read through the file cases and did the Ho'oponopono prayer over and over and over again. And it wasn't long before the patients started to change. They started to have a change of hearts. They became less violent. They became easier to work with. They became more submissive to the therapy process. And the staff started staying and doing the work, and the turnover rate started to drop. And eventually, all the people in that hospital were released either to other hospitals that were more amenable to them, or friendly, or lower security, or they were just, healed from whatever their ailment was, and they were able to go about their lives. And eventually the whole hospital closed. I've never spoken with Mr. Len. I'm sorry, Dr. Len. But I've listened to a bunch of people who have, and it seems like a very convincing story. But the thing that gets me is that, just like I spoke about earlier with the mirror principle, when you look out in the world and you see things on the screen of your world, that has to be, by definition, a mirror of whatever's on the inside. And I've talked about this in other videos, but essentially the idea kind of works like this: is your brain, you have paradigms and you have filters through which you see things. You have you've assigned values to different things in the world. And when you see a circumstance, you may automatically make a judgment about it, whether it's good or bad or indifferent or what have you. And so through that process, because all the information that comes in gets filtered through that, the things that you perceive on the outside get filtered in through all those different thought processes and paradigms and preconceptions and judgments and prejudices that you have. It all gets filtered through that until you perceive the things that are outside of you. And this is something we talk about a lot in the law of attraction world, and the people who are trying to practice manifestation, is that, if you don't like the world that you see outside of you, then you have to change yourself. So what I want to do today, especially given the events of this week, is I want to offer this Ho'oponopono prayer for Thomas Matthew Crooks. So I'm going to say, Thomas, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Thomas Crooks, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And to his parents, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I also want to say to Corey Compertor, the firefighter who died, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. and for the people who are injured, and the people who are frightened. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And for my own son, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. It's not lost on me that this Ho'oponopono idea seems a little Pollyanna. Seems a little bit silly. I get that. And it's also not lost on me that asking for forgiveness and then immediately saying thank you for it seems maybe narcissistic. But you have to remember that with the Ho'oponopono prayer, it's not so much that I'm asking for Thomas Crooks to forgive me, because obviously he can't. He's not here with us anymore. Or I'm not asking for Corey Comparatore. Please, I hope I'm not butchering his name. I'm also not asking his forgiveness, per se, because obviously he's no longer with us. But the forgiveness that I'm asking is of that part of myself that witnesses those things, that part of me that's broken, the part of me that hasn't healed, the part of me that sees these things in the outside world. Because there's a part of me that is still lost and frightened and scared. There's still a part of me that is bound up by what the Catholics call original sin. It's still in there and still struggling and still trying to figure these things out. So when you're saying the Ho'oponopono prayer, it's not this narcissistic worldview. It's not a solipsistic worldview where you think like, oh, I'm the only person and all these people that like, even if they can't ever forgive me, or even if they never would forgive me, then I'm just going to say thank you anyway. Like, pfft, I don't care what you think. I said sorry, forgive me, and thanks, because, yeah, it's not that at all. It's looking at that part inside of yourself that's broken. It's looking at that part of yourself that is lost and frightened and scared. Like if you saw the episode that I did with Whitney Riley, when we talked about the infant that's been there since like your earliest childhood times, and maybe even while you were still in the womb. Some of these things have been there. Some of these ways have been bound up inside of you for so long. And you may not even remember how it came about. When you say the Ho'oponopono prayer, when you say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, you're saying it to yourself. You're saying it to your higher power. You're saying it to your past self and your future self. And you're saying it to the collective of humanity. You may be focusing on an individual. You may be focusing on a name. But it's for all of us. And I know that this video probably isn't going to win me a lot of friends, because the consensus in the world today, particularly in the United States, particularly since our nation is so divided, if you're not going to get on one side of the fence and point fingers at the other, then You're probably some kind of monster, and so be it. But I choose to seek after healing. It's like I say at the end of so many of these episodes that I hope you're seeking to understand more so than to be understood. I hope you're choosing forgiveness over revenge. I hope you're seeking restitution rather than division. I hope you're seeking truth rather than falling for lies. And this is another part of why I'm doing what I'm doing here. It wasn't just a month ago. It was less than a month ago where I was struggling with an idea, and my old programming thought, yeah, I'm going to go back to church. I'm going to go listen to what the spiritual teachers of my childhood had to say about things. And when I went there, he was just spouting lies and division and fear and hatred. That was what he had to offer. And the reality is that we live in a time when we can't trust our institutions. The government is broken. Our healthcare system is broken. Our education system is broken. Our religions are broken. Everything's broken. But we're all adults. We can fix it. And we have to stop acting like children. We have to stop waiting for somebody to come and fix our problems. This is maybe the greatest thing that I learned from walking away from Christianity, was that I don't have to wait around for Jesus to come out of the clouds and fix my life for me. There was no place in the Bible where Jesus said, just hang on, I'll handle everything for you. Don't worry about it. And when things go wrong, just I'll be there any minute now. And I'll fix all your problems and they'll all go away. It's not there. Not how it goes. There's lots of things about relying on the Lord, and don't rely on your own understanding, and delight yourself in the Lord. And I've talked about these things. Those are important things that you have to do. But that doesn't mean you can just wait around and say, well, Jesus is going to come back. I've got a whole other video that I'm working on about that, about getting over your religious trauma syndrome, like I've had to do. And I don't mean to say getting over get over it, but there are ways and means and methods to be able to get past that kind of stuff and heal from it. I've wasted so much of my life because I was just waiting for Jesus to come back. But we've done this as a nation. We've done this as a people. We've done this as religious societies. Think about this analogy. This is how I think of religion. Is imagine that you have a newborn baby. And that newborn baby needs to be held. Its head needs to be cradled. It has to be fed and changed and paid attention to, and you have to nurture it, and you can't do much with it. It can't do anything on its own. It can't even roll over on its own for the first few days. But then little by slowly, if everything goes well, it can pick up its own head, and then soon it can sit up, and then one day it can hold its own bottle, and then eventually it starts to walk. And then with each time it progresses, you give it a little more space. You give the child a little more room. Maybe you have a blanket, but with little bumpers on the side of it, so it can roll over, but it's not going to go past the bumpers. And then maybe when it's a little bit older, you set up a little playpen where it can crawl, but it's not going to go past that. And then eventually it wants to get out of the playpen, so you child-proof your house, and you make sure there's nothing that it can stick anything into any outlets, and it's not going to fall down any stairs, and you take care of all those sorts of things so the child will be safe. And then eventually, if everything continues to go well, the child can play in the backyard, and eventually maybe there'll be some neighborhood friends, and the child can start to explore the neighborhood, or learn how to ride a bike, and if everything continues to go well, then the child can, get themselves to school and, gets a driver's license, or, can take public transportation. And if everything continues to go well, then the child can eventually get a car and go to college and leave and get married and start its own life or have its own adventures around the world. But you're not going to take an infant that just came home from the hospital yesterday and expect it to be able to go on a safari in Africa or go backpacking across Europe. Like, it's not going to happen, right? What churches do, what organized religion does, is it stunts your growth. It stunts your growth at the point where you're allowed to go outside and play in the backyard. But you're not allowed to go play over your neighbor's house. You can play in your backyard. And your mom and dad are going to set up play dates for you. And they'll have other kids that'll come over that, your mom and dad get along with their mom and dad. And maybe you have some siblings in the backyard. And you have those siblings that come from approved families. And you can all play together in the backyard. And then you may know that backyard really, really well. You can know where every stick and blade of grass and how to climb every tree and where the fences are. And you know everything about that backyard. And then maybe you've got an older brother who is, say these kids or that know everything about the backyard are 5, 6 years old. Maybe there's some 2 and 3 year olds who are out there with some of the older kids and they can do it. Mom and dad are there close by. It's fine. But then there's an older brother and he's 10. And man, that older brother, he's been in the garage with dad and working on dad's car. And dad showed him how to start the lawnmower. And he got to push the lawnmower because he's a big kid. And he knows so much about the world. And maybe this 10-year-old, he's got a bike and he can ride down the street, but you can't because you're still little and you're still stuck in the backyard. And the big brother comes back and he's like, oh, that house down there, you can't go to that house because they have a dog and that dog's scary. He'll bite you. And he tells you, all these things and there's all these rules. And my dad taught me how to drive a car and all this kind of stuff happens. You can picture this in your head, right? And then you've got your parents who are always telling you, you can't go down the street by yourself. You can't go out there because people will steal you and there's dangers and there's dogs and there's scary things and there's trains that'll run you over and there's cars and you don't know how to use traffic lights and how you can't handle any of these sorts of things. So you have to stay in the backyard. This is what organized religion does. It keeps you there spiritually and emotionally. It keeps you locked in the backyard. And the pastors and rabbis and imams and whomever else, gurus, they're the 10-year-old brother, maybe a mom or a dad. A highly advanced one might be a mom or a dad, or an older cousin. And you just believe the things that they're telling you. And they don't want you to grow up. They don't want, and maybe it's because of compassion. Maybe it's because of, some weird overprotective process. I don't know. I talked to Christine a couple days ago about parenting and how sometimes when we as parents use the methods of punishment and discipline that our parents used on us, it could be that it's the only thing that we know, or it could be that when we were a child and our parents were imposing their will on us. We felt powerless. And now that we're an adult, if we haven't done the healing work on our own inner child, then there's that tendency for us to want to impose our will on somebody smaller and weaker than us, just like it was done to us. Because we didn't have any kind of control, so why should you have any control? And that vicious cycle that happens. But eventually, if you let yourself, if you do some exploring on your own and you find out that, like, once you get outside the backyard, it's not that bad. There's some really interesting stuff out there. There's a candy store that you can go to. It's kind of neat. There's some neighbors down the road. They've got a really cool dog that's fun to play with. But then eventually, if you allow yourself to grow, if you can break away from the family, and in this analogy, it's the government, it's the organized religion, it's all these constraints that are put on you by societies and cultures and all these things. If you can push out and you can expand and you learn more about that, good for you. Expand your consciousness. My mistake that I make is that sometimes I go back to church, and that's a little bit like me going home for Thanksgiving or going home to visit my dad and, sleeping in the old guest bedroom for a little while. And it's fine. Love my dad. But I can only be under his roof for so long before I'm ready to bounce. Like, I gotta get out of there. Going back to church is kind of the same thing. And one thing you will never hear in church, not any church that I know of anyway, is anything about Ho'oponopono or taking radical accountability for your life. What you will hear is to turn it all over to Jesus. Jesus will fix your problems. Jesus is coming back soon. And when you have that attitude, when you have that mentality towards life, nothing gets fixed. And we end up just being children. We end up just being children led around by our bully older brother who's like, yeah, you got to do this, you got to do that. And dad says this, and I'm cool because I can mow the lawn, but you can't. And right? I mean, do you see how this all works? But we're at a point in history now. We have to stand up. We have to grow up. My generation and younger generations, it's just time. It's time to grow up. Look at what's happening in the world. It's time for us to have these spiritual awakenings. It's time for us to mature. It's time for us to take radical accountability. It's time for us to take drastic measures to fix this nation, to fix Western culture before it gets fixed for us. And how are you going to do that? You're going to vote for Donald Trump? We did that before. Maybe the economy got a little bit better, but it was a train wreck. It was a train wreck. You're going to do it by voting for whoever the Democrats choose to replace Joe Biden? That's also going to be a train wreck. There's nobody out there who isn't just completely batshit crazy, bonkers and useless. There's nobody. But we still keep sitting here like we're waiting. Who's going to do this? Who's going to be in the White House? Who are they going to replace their cabinet members with? Are the Democrats or the Republicans going to take the Congress? Or like blah, 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 blah. But is anybody saying, I'm going to be more responsible? I am going to stop listening to the lies coming from the pulpit. I'm going to stop listening to the lies that are coming from the mainstream media. I'm done with you people. I'm done. I'm going to research this stuff on my own. And I'm going to be wise. And I'm going to be balanced. And I'm going to use my intelligence. And I'm going to use my scrutiny. I'm not going to fall for the nonsense that's out there. If somebody wants me to join their team and point fingers at the other team, I'm going to ask them what their motivation is. Left or right. And I'm going to take radical accountability for my life. And for the events that project onto the screen of my brain. And for me, I'm going to continue saying the Ho'oponopono prayer. So, one last time, I guess. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And I highly encourage you to take up that practice in your own life. Anyway. I hope you're doing well. I hope this finds you well. I hope you had a good day. I hope you had a good week. I know it was a rough one for me. And I hope that you are finding joy in your life. I hope you're having fun. Like, please have fun in your life. It's so important. I went to go see a Dave Matthews concert last night. Dave Matthews Band. And it's always good for me to check in with Dave Matthews Band with the concerts. I don't go to any other concerts, but I go see Dave Matthews every year. And every year I notice a big change in myself, and a change in my openness, and a change in how I interact with people. But my favorite thing about going to this is, well, it's two things. One is just a tremendous crowd of people. Thousands upon thousands of people, and there's just something magical about being a part of a group of 10,000, 20,000 people, and you're all singing the same songs, and you're all having a good time, and you're all like agreeing with it, and you're dancing together, and you're having a good time, and it's just beautiful. It's a beautiful experience to be like a human being as part of a joyous crowd that is just celebrating together and singing songs together, and listening to the message that is there in the music for us, especially in Dave Matthews' lyrics, where he's got that one song that's just like, don't throw the day away. Like, you're only here for a little while. So much of the themes of his music is, we're only here for a little while here on earth. We're just little creatures crawling up out of the mud, like blinking up into the stars and the heavens. And, we've come so far from, just emerging out of the trees, and we built cities, and we created wars, and we flew to the stars, and we've done these amazing things. And yet for some reason, we can't figure out how to take care of ourselves and take care of the planet and just learn how to love. And so when I go to the Dave Matthews Band concert, it's 10, 20,000 people that are listening to these lyrics and hearing these words and feeling those things all together. And another thing that I love is just Dave, because he just has a blast. He just, like, every day of his life, he's picking up his guitar and he's singing his songs and he's dancing and he's playing and he's with his friends and with other musicians, and he's traveling around and he's seeing amazing things, and he's just like bringing together this art, and he's just doing this amazing stuff for people, and he's bringing together crowds of tens of thousands of people, like in concert hall and stadiums around the world, day after day, and selling albums and making music and bringing people joy and bringing them love and reminding them to live their life to the best of their ability. But he has fun. He just has a blast. So, if you've listened this long, then A, God bless you. And B, have fun. Find the thing that you do in life that you want to do that's fun, that builds other people up, and do that. You don't have to be Dave Matthews. You don't have to be Joe Rogan. You don't have to be anybody. Just be you. But go have fun doing it. Like, you do the math. I saw a guy on YouTube the other day. He did the math. And like, over an average person's life, you're going to spend something like 5 years like taking showers. You know? And another 5 years of your life is just taking a crap. Like sitting on the toilet. So you're going to have like 5 years of your life of just being like, man, I gotta take a shower. This sucks. Water's too hot. Water's too cold. Soak my eyes. For 5 years of your life. That's insane. Ugh. Fun. Enjoy life. That's the thing I talk about, where, you know, delight yourself in the Lord and He'll give you the desires of your heart. It's like that. You're like, oh, I get to take a shower. I have running water in my house. Cool. It's amazing. I have soap. I don't even know where it comes from. I don't even know what it is, but it gets the dirty stuff off of the skin stuff. How cool is that? Have fun with it. Don't be a drag. Anyway, I've said it a couple times now, but listen, if you've been with me long enough and you're still hearing this, I thank you. I would highly encourage you to go check out skool.com, skool.com, /finding-fuscata. There's a growing community over there, some great people, and we're building some like beautiful friendships over there. And of course, like, share, and subscribe if you're watching the video version of this. If you're listening to the audio only version of this, subscribe, listen, binge watch this stuff, download all of it, you know. And it won't be long now. If I get some feedback from this, I would love to be able to set up a Patreon page to help fund all this, because it would make my life a heck of a lot easier if I could hire somebody to do the thumbnails and hire somebody to do the copywriting and help pay for the skool.com, because all that stuff's coming out of pocket right now and it takes up a great deal of my time. So let me know if you would like me to keep pursuing this, and if you'd like me to start a Patreon page that you can help out, or I can maybe even set up, I don't think I can do like the join button until I have 1,000 subs. But if you like what I'm doing and you want me to continue to do it, then please support me in some way. Let me know if you want me to set that kind of stuff up, because the more time that I have to be able to interview people and to write scripts and to put together these ideas, the better quality we have. But that means I gotta pay somebody else to do like the editing, and I gotta pay somebody else to do the thumbnails and booking appointments and doing all that kind of stuff. I'd love to be able to have a personal assistant. That costs, you know, at minimum, you know, a couple $100 a month to be able to do that. So anyway, let me know if that's something you want me to do. And I think that's about it. Yeah. I hope you're doing well. Hope this finds you well. Hope you find joy in your life today. And I will not see you later, but I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Yeah, I know my dad's annoying.
Playing me off the stage today is Believe by Nefex.
Losing time, I'm fading fast. I just wanna make it last. Try to let go of the past. I close my eyes, embrace the blast. Sleepless nights and headache stack. Restlessness to hell and back. What's my purpose? What do I grab? A slippery surface, a heart attack. And sometimes you just gotta believe. There's something that'll give you relief. There's something that'll have what you need. What you need. We're broken, it's tragic, we're not all elastic, but maybe there's magic, believe you could have it. And I know of sadness, the anxious and panic, the infinite vastness of all that is blackness.